What up, y'all? It's your boy Mikey. And you might be wondering why I'm on here right now on a Wednesday when I should be on Tuesday. But yesterday I had a little bit of problems with the BOC, Bunnies of Chaos, Grossman. They kind of, put a foil to my live yesterday.
Good morning!
Hello, lowly humans. We are the Bunnies of Chaos. And, yes, we're Mrs. Grossman too. We now are in full control of your device.
So join us for this special presentation, in that special way that only the Bunnies of Chaos can do.
I swear, Grossman. All right, let's say hi to a couple people around here. We got Chris Booth here. Hello, Chris. And who else is here? Yes, I know. Probably, it's probably too late for a lot of people, but fuck, let's do this. We're gonna be talking about infamous assassins. Of course, you may know a few of them throughout history. We had people like Mark David Chapman, Lee Harvey Oswald, different people like that. So, Deadpool. I don't know. I wouldn't consider Deadpool an assassin, but he's badass. He's a badass guy. All right, let's get into this here now. No BSing. The first person that we're going to get into is Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was a former U.S. Marine who assassinated United States President John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. Yes. Oswald was placed in juvenile detention at the age of 12 for truancy, during which time he was assessed by a psychiatrist as emotionally disturbed due to a lack of normal family life. After attending 22 schools in his youth, he quit repeatedly and finally, when he was 17, joined the Marines. Oswald was court-martialed twice while in the Marines and jailed. He was honorably released from active duty in the Marine Corps into the reserve, then promptly flew to Europe, defected to the Soviet Union on October 1959. He lived in Minsk, Belarus. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Oh, hey, what's going on, Calvin? Ange, what's going on? No, Jack the Ripper really wasn't an assassin. Well, maybe in his own, how could I say, right, he was. But I'm talking about people that literally assassinated him, important figures of things, But I get where you're coming from. So let's get back to this. So Lee Harvey Oswald married a Russian woman named Marina and had a daughter. On June of 1962, he returned to the United States with his wife, eventually settled in Dallas, where their second daughter was also born. Oswald shot and killed Kennedy on November 22nd of 1963 from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. As the president traveled by motorcade through Delay Plaza in Dallas. About 45 minutes after assassinating Kennedy, Oswald shot and killed Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit on a local street. He then slipped into a movie theater where he was arrested for Tippett's murder. Oswald was charged with the assassination of Kennedy, but he denied responsibility for the killing, claiming that he was a patsy. 2 days later, Oswald was fatally shot by local nightclub owner Jack Ruby on live television in the basement of a Dallas police headquarters. So, Calvin says, trying to get up there with them eagle teeth. On September of 1964, the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald had acted alone when assassinating Kennedy. This conclusion, though controversial, was supported by investigations from the Dallas Police Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the United States Secret Service, and the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Hey, we got PBDC in the house. TV from Twitch. Yes, that's right. Share, follow, and smash that notification bell. Nah, you know what? Don't even smash it, man. Grab a hammer, just let it rip with the hammer. Despite forensics, ballistics, and eyewitness evidence supporting the official findings, public opinion polls have shown that most Americans still do not believe that the official version tells the whole truth of events. And the assassination spawned numerous conspiracy theories. Yes, that is correct. It did spawn a lot of conspiracy theories. And well, out of the ordinary, we do specialize in conspiracy theories, which I'll tell you right now, just be careful about those conspiracy theories because I was taken by Agent M, or codename M. I don't know who the hell this guy is, but I know he was lurking around here not too long ago, saying something about that he was going to take over and stuff. So I don't freaking know. But just be careful with codename M. Be careful with him. Be careful with Grossman and the Bunnies of Chaos, because they will silence you. All right. Oswald was born at the Old French Hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana, on October 18th of 1939 to Robert Edward Lee Oswald Sr. and Marguerite Frances Calvier. There we go, Calvier. Robert Oswald was a distant cousin of Confederate General Robert E. Lee and served in the Marines during World War I. Robert died of a heart attack 2 months before Lee was born. Lee's elder brother, Robert Jr., was also a former Marine. Though Marguerite's first marriage to Edward John Pick Jr., Lee and Robert Jr. were the half-brothers of Air Force veteran John Edwards Pick. And that's P-I-C, the way they say it. In 1944, Marguerite moved the family from New Orleans to Dallas, Texas. Oswald entered the first grade in 1945, and over the next half dozen years, attended several different schools in the Dallas and Fort Worth areas through the sixth grade. Oswald took an IQ test in the fourth grade and scored 103 on achievement test in grades 4 to 6. He twice did his best in reading and twice worse in his spelling. As a child, Oswald was described as a withdrawn, temperamental by several people who knew him. When Oswald was 12 in August of 1952, his mother took him to New York City, where they lived for a short time. Oswald's half-brother, John Oswald, and his mother were later asked to leave after an argument which Oswald allegedly struck his mother and threatened John's wife with a pocket knife. Oswald attended 7th grade in the Bronx, New York, but was often truant, which led to a psychiatric assessment and juvenile reformatory. The reformatory psychiatrist Dr. Renatus Hartogs described Oswald as immersed in vivid fantasy life, turning around the topics of the omnipotence and power, through which Oswald tried to compensate for his present shortcomings and frustrations. Dr. Hartogs concluded, Lee has to be diagnosed as personality pattern disturbance with schizoid features and passive-aggressive tendencies. Lee has to be an emotional, quiet, disturbed youngster who suffers under the impact of really existing emotional isolation and deprivation, lack of affection, absence of family and life, rejection by a self-involved and conflicted mother. So yeah, they were putting a little bit of the blame on the mother, and yeah, I understand that. Hartogs recommended that Lee be placed on probation on condition that he seek help and guidance through Child Guidance Clinic. At that, Oswald seek psychotherapeutic guidance through contact with a family agency. Evelyn D. Siegel, a social worker, interviewed both Lee and Oswald at the youth house. While describing a rather pleasant, appealing quality about his emotionally starved, affectionate youngster, which grows as one to speak to him, found that he had detached himself from the world around him because no one in it ever met any of his needs for love. Hartogs and Siegel indicated that Oswald's mother gave Lee very little affection, with Siegel concluding that Lee just felt that his mother never gave a damn for him. He always felt like a burden that she simply just had to tolerate. Furthermore, his mother did not apparently indicate an awareness of the relationship between her conduct and Lee's psychological problems. With Siegel describing Marguerite Oswald as defensive and rigid, a self-involved person who had a real difficulty in accepting and relating to people, and who had little understanding of Lee's behavior and of the protective shell he has drawn around himself. Hartog reported that she did not understand that Lee's withdrawal was a form of violent but silent protest against his neglect by her, and represents his reaction to complete absence of any real family life. So yeah, that Harvey Oswald, he was a messed up guy, man. So let's see here. Give me a second. Let me. So yeah, I don't want to get too much into Lee Harvey Oswald because there is something that's coming up about all of that, and I don't want to, I don't want to ruin it all. So let's get to the next assassin here, Mark David Chapman. We all know who that guy is and what he did. Mark David Chapman is an incarcerated American who murdered former Beatles member John Lennon in New York City on December 8th, 1980. As Lennon walked into the archway of his apartment at the Dakota, Chapman fired 5 shots at Lennon from a few yards away with the Charter Arm undercover .38 special revolver. Lennon was hit 4 times from the back. Chapman remained at the scene reading J.D. Salinger's novel Catcher in the Rye. And speaking of Catcher in the Rye, I'd like to advise you guys to, go read banned books. A lot of these books, they're banned and everything like that, and go read banned books. Read Catcher in the Rye. Read 1980. 1984. That kind of stuff. And Hexes there says 2 months before I was born. Hexes, I thought you were there already. I thought you had already been there, man. Huh. And Calvin says he was 13 when that happened. Yeah, that when that happened, that was actually 5 years before I was born. I was born in '85, so yeah. And Hexus, I know you had to have been there, man. You had to have been there. Anyhow, he was reading Catcher in the Rye until he was arrested by police. He planned to cite the novel as his manifesto. Raised in Decatur, Georgia, Chapman had been a fan of the Beatles, but was incensed. Yeah, I figured that, Hexus. I figured that. You were in the shadows there, but I know you were there. So he wasn't. Mark David Chapman, he was incensed by Lennon's lifestyle and public statements. Of course, you had a lot of people that were. You had a lot of people that hated John Lennon. He wasn't. How could I say? He wasn't a too much loved character like people think he is. I mean, now everybody's John Lennon, but like back then, he was a really big he was a really big magnet for controversy and stuff like that. So let's read on. So Mark David Chapman really didn't like John Lennon's remarks, such as his remark about the Beatles being more popular than Jesus, which yes, that brought on a lot of controversy, and the lyrics of his later songs, God and Imagine. In the years leading up to the murder, Chapman developed a series of obsessions, including artwork and music of Todd Rundgren. The Catcher in the Rye took on great personal significance for him, to the extent that he wished to model his life after the novel's protagonist, Holden Caulfield. Chapman also contemplated killing other public figures, including Johnny Carson, Paul McCartney, and Elizabeth Taylor. Who would want to kill Elizabeth Taylor? Are you the hooligan that stole my wig? Hexes. Yeah, man. They sold their soul for rock and roll. And then Anne says, "I seen it on TV." So you saw when they arrested Mark David Chapman on TV, because I don't think it was on live when they assassinated Lennon. So you probably saw the news afterwards. Anyhow, he had no he had no prior criminal convictions, as just resigned from a job as a security guard in Hawaii. Following the murder, Chapman's legal team intended to mount an insanity defense that would be based on his testimony of mental health experts who said that he was in a delusional psychotic state. He was more cooperative with the prosecutor, who argued his symptoms fell short of schizophrenia diagnosis. As the trial approached, he instructed his lawyers that he wanted to plead guilty based on what he had decided that was the will of God. The judge granted Chapman's request and deemed him competent to stand trial. He was sentenced to a prison term of 20 years to life, with stipulations that mental health treatment would be provided. So yeah, he people want to say he's mental, but I don't buy it. I'm not buying into it. Chapman refused requests for press interviews during his 6 years in prison. He later said that he regretted the murder and did not want to give the impression that he killed Lennon for fame and notoriety. He ultimately supplied audio taped interviews to journalist Jack Jones, who used them to write the investigative book, Let Me Take You Down, Inside the Mind of Mark David Chapman, in 1992. Now it's time to give a little. Damn, hexes. Chapman became eligible for parole as since been denied 11 times. His life dramatized in films in The Killing of John Lennon, 2006, and Chapter 27 in 2007. Well, right now I'm not sure when, but sometime this year in 2021, he's going up for parole again, or he already did go up for parole again, and he was denied. I'm not sure, but look it up. So, yeah, Chapman, yeah, he was a real interesting character, man. So, in 1971, Chapman became a born again Presbyterian and distributed biblical tracts. He met his first girlfriend, excuse me. He met his first girlfriend, Jessica Blankenship, and began to work as a summer camp counselor at the South DeKalb County, Georgia YMCA. Oh, hey Nadine. That might have been a little slight error. But yeah, it was right. It was live at 9 o'clock 9 o'clock Texas time, 7 o'clock California time. So yeah. So he was very popular with children who nicknamed him Nemo, and was made assistant director after winning an award for outstanding counselor. Those who knew him in the caretaking profession unanimously called him an outstanding worker. Chapman read J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye on recommendation of a friend. The novel eventually took on great personal significance for him, to the extent that he reportedly wished to model his life after the protagonist Holden Caulfield. After graduating from Columbia High School, Chapman moved for a time to Chicago, where he played guitar in churches and Christian night spots while his friend did impersonations. He worked successfully for World Vision with Vietnamese refugees at the resettlement camp at Fort Chaffee in Arkansas, or Arkansas. I'm not sure how people say that. I call it Arkansas. After a key to aid program director, David Moore, who later said Chapman cared deeply for the children and worked hard, Chapman accompanied Moore to meetings with government officials, and President Gerald Ford shook his hand. So yeah, he started getting big up in there and stuff. Chapman joined Blankenship as student at Covenant College, an evangelical Presbyterian liberal arts college in Lookout Mountain, Georgia. However, Chapman fell behind in his studies and became obsessed with guilt over having an affair. He started having suicidal thoughts and began to feel like a failure. He dropped out of Covenant College after just one semester. His girlfriend broke off their relationship soon after. Chapman returned to work at the resettlement camp, but left after an argument. He then worked as a security guard, eventually taking a week-long course to qualify as an armed guard in 1977. Chapman moved to Hawaii, where he attempted suicide by carbon monoxide asphyxiation. And let me tell you right now, folks, if you are ever feeling that way about, committing suicide and everything like that, there is help out there, guys. So don't ever feel like you're alone. Call the suicide hotline. It just, we still want you here. We care. We do care. So yes, go and, right there, right there. Call the suicide prevention hotline. Anyhow, he connected a hose to his car in the exhaust pipe, but the hose melted and the attempt failed. A psychiatrist admitted Chapman to Castle Memorial Hospital for clinical depression. Upon his release, he began working at the hospital. After Chapman's parents began divorce proceedings, his mother joined him in Hawaii. So yeah, so then later on, he was fired from the hospital, rehired, then got into a shouting match with the nurse and quit. After this, Chapman took a job as a night security guard and began drinking heavily. He developed a series of obsessions, including artwork, Catcher in the Rye, music, and the musician John Lennon. In September of 1980, he wrote a letter to a friend, Linda Irish, which he stated, "I'm going nuts." He signed the letter, "The Catcher in the Rye." Chapman had no criminal convictions prior to his trip to New York to kill John Lennon. Exactly, Ange. Exactly. You're never alone. I mean, you get those feelings and stuff like, message me too. I mean, I'm here too. We're all here. The Psycho Bunny's here. You have people. You're never alone in this. So let's get into when he started planning this. So Chapman allegedly started planning to kill English musician John Lennon 3 months prior to the murder. A longtime fan of John Lennon banned the Beatles. Chapman turned against Lennon following religious conversion and was angry about Lennon's highly publicized 1966 comment that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. Some members of Chapman's prayer group made a joke in reference to Lennon's song Imagine. It went, "Imagine if John Lennon was dead." Chapman's childhood friend Miles McManushy, I don't understand that name, recalled that he said that the song was communist. Chapman had also been influenced by Anthony Fawcett's John Lennon, One Day at a Time, about John Lennon's lifestyle in New York. According to his wife Gloria, he was angry that Lennon would preach love and peace, but yet have millions. Chapman later said, "He told us to imagine no possessions. There he was with millions of dollars and yachts and farms and country estates, laughing at people like me who believed the lies and bought the records and built a big part of their lives around his music." He also recalled having listened to Lennon's solo albums in the weeks before the murder. So, damn, man. So this guy was heavily obsessed with, he was pissed off because Lennon was making music and everything like that. It's freaking music, man. Like, who cares if Lennon's out with a yacht or country things and stuff? Who cares? It's freaking music. This dude clearly was obsessed, per se. Okay, so Chapman said, "I would listen to his music and I would get angry at him for saying in the song God that he didn't believe in God, that he just believed in him and Yoko, that he didn't believe in the Beatles. This was another thing that angered me," he said. "Even though this record had been done at least 10 years previously, I just wanted to scream out loud, who does he think he is, saying these things about God and heaven and the Beatles, saying he doesn't believe in Jesus and things like that. At that point, my mind was going through a total blackness of anger and rage. So I bought the Lennon book home. Into this, the Catcher in the Rye milieu, where my mindset is Holden Caulfield and anti-phoniness." So that's when he started. Oh, hey, Liz. Nice to have you here. So this guy is clearly he's going ape shit because of Lennon. Okay, so he starts planning all this stuff and everything like that, and So, Chapman's planning has been described as muddled over the years. Chapman has both supported and denied whether he felt justified by his spiritual beliefs at the time or had intention in acquiring notoriety. The only time he made a public statement before his sentencing and for several years afterwards was during a brief psychotic episode in which he was convinced that the meaning of his actions was to promote The Catcher in the Rye, which amounted to a single letter mailed to New York Times asking the public to read the novel. Hexa says, Jesus, he owes me $12. Well, you might want to go reclaim them $12. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about your financial status, Hexas, but hey, you go mess with the big man. All right, so journalist James R. Gaines, who interviewed Chapman exclusively, concluded that Chapman did not kill Lennon to become a celebrity. According to Chapman, in later parole hearings, he had an alternate hit list of potential targets in mind, including Beatles bandmate Paul McCartney, talk show host Johnny Carson, actress Elizabeth Taylor, actor George C. Scott, former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, just elected U.S. President Ronald Reagan, and Hawaii Governor George Ariyoshi in 2010. Oh, in 2010, he said that the only criterion for this list was being famous and that he chose Lennon out of convenience. So this guy clearly, give me a second here. Clearly he does seem like he's scatterbrained, I want to say, but then again, he said out of convenience, God. And that's why they won't let him out. So, it is rumored that Chapman traveled to Woodstock, New York, during one of his visits to the States in search of Todd Rundgren, another target of obsession. Chapman was wearing a promotional T-shirt of Rundgren's album Hermit of the Mink Hollow. And oh, Stephen P. Kitty Cat, hey, what's going on, man? Hello. So, when he was arrested and had a copy of Runt, the Ballad of Todd Rundgren, in his hotel room, Rundgren was not aware of the connections until much later. On the day of the murder, singer David Bowie was appearing on Broadway, and he played the Elephant Man. It was second on this list. Bowie later said Chapman had front row tickets to the Elephant Man right the next night. John and Yoko were supposed to sit in front row for that show too. So the night after John was killed, there were 3 empty seats in the front row. I can't tell you how difficult it was to go on. I almost didn't make it through the performance. So yeah, wow. So this guy was actually supposed to go to a Bowie show? Wow. Chapman went to New York in October of 1980 intending to kill Lennon, but left to obtain ammunition from his unwitting friend in Atlanta before returning in November. During his October trip to New York, Chapman was inspired by the film Ordinary People to stop his plans. He returned to Hawaii, told his wife that he had been obsessed with killing Lennon. Then Chapman showed her the gun and bullets, but she did not inform the police or mental health services. Chapman later said that the message, "Thou shalt not kill," flashed on the television at him and was on the wall hanging at his wife's put up in their apartment. I'm guessing a picture. Ha! Nadine, more like Yoko. Oh no. That's a good one. He made an appointment to see a clinical psychologist, but he did not keep it and flew back to New York December 6th, 1980. At one point, he considered ending his life by jumping from the Statue of Liberty. Oh my God. Like this dude, I don't know. The more I read on about Mark David Chapman, I'm thinking this dude, how stupid is this dude? Like, seriously. Like, okay, I get that maybe I get the whole thing about mental illness and everything like that, but this guy was not mentally ill. This guy just wanted to fucking kill. Like that's all he wanted to do. And I hope that guy stays in. And just like Yoko said, and I'm not really too much of a big fan of Yoko Ono or anything like that, but just like Yoko said, and she even wrote a letter to the parole board that she does not want Mark David Chapman out of jail. And I do agree with that because a guy like him does not belong in society either. Hell no. So on December 7th, Chapman accosted singer James Taylor at the 72nd Street subway station. According to Taylor, the guy had sort of pinned me to the wall, and was glistening with maniacal sweat and talking some freak speak about what he was going to do and his stuff with how John was interested, and he was going to get in touch with John Lennon. He also reportedly offered cocaine to a taxi driver. That night, Chapman and his wife talked on the phone about getting help with his problems by first working on his relationship with God. On the morning of December 8th, Chapman left his room at the Sheraton Hotel, leaving personal items behind he wanted the police to find. He bought a copy of Catcher in the Rye in which he wrote, "This is my statement," signing it. Holden Caulfield. He then spent most of his days near the entrance to the Dakota apartment building where Lennon lived. Talking to fans and the doorman early in the morning, Chapman was distracted and missed seeing Lennon step out of a cab and enter the Dakota. What a moron. Later in the morning, he met Lennon's housekeeper who was returning from a walk with Lennon's 5-year-old son, Sean. Chapman reached out in front of the housekeeper to shake Sean's hand and said that he was a beautiful boy, quoting Lennon's song, "Beautiful Boy" or "Darling Boy." At around 5 p.m., Lennon and his wife, Yoko Ono, were leaving the Dakota for a recording session at Record Plant Studios. Or Record Plant Studios, my bad. Not Record Planet, Record Plant. As they walked towards their limousine without saying a word, Chapman held out Lennon's record for Lennon to sign a copy of his album, Double Fantasy. Amateur photographer Paul Goresh was standing by and took a picture as Lennon signed the album. Chapman said in an interview that he tried to get Goresh to stay and asked another loitering Lennon fan to go out with him that night. He suggested that he would not have murdered Lennon that evening if the girl had accepted his invitation or if Goresh had stayed, but he probably would have tried another day. So, man, this guy's messed up. It does not say Stephen P. Kitty Cat. It does not say if he accepted it or not, but I mean, I'm guessing maybe not. I mean, hell, I wouldn't want to accept no shit from nobody offering me if I'm giving them a ride. Hell no. Especially if I ain't know the motherfucker. So, wait. My bad. I got distracted here real quick. Chapman remained at the scene and appeared to be reading Catcher in the... Wait. What the hell? Wait. Okay, no, my bad. I was already skipping pieces. Around 10:50 p.m., John Lennon and Yoko Ono returned to the Dakota in a limousine. They got out of the vehicle, passed Chapman, and walked towards the archway entrance of the building from the street behind him. Chapman fired 5 hollow point bullets from a .38 special revolver, 4 of which hit Lennon in the back and the shoulder, puncturing his left lung and left subclavian artery. One newspaper later reported that Chapman softly called out Mr. Lennon before firing. Then dropped into combat stance, Chapman said that he does not recall saying anything, and Lennon did not turn around. Chapman remained at the scene and appeared to be reading Catcher in the Rye when New York Police Department officers arrived and arrested him without incident. The first responders recognized that Lennon's wounds were severe and decided not to wait for an ambulance. They rushed him to Roosevelt Hospital in the squad car. Lennon was pronounced dead on arrival 3 hours later. Chapman told the police, "I'm sure the big part of me is Holden Caulfield, who is the main person in the book. The small part of me must be the devil." So, yeah. Hex says he's blaming you, dude. He's blaming you. All right, let's get into somebody else. All right. Let's get into Charles Julius Gwynwitnow. If I'm saying that correctly, I don't know. So Charles Julius was born in Freeport, Illinois, the fourth of 6 children of Jane August and Luther Wilson Guiteau. I guess it's Guiteau. Whose family was French Cuban. God dang it. CMP Kitty Cat says, "Hold on loosely, but don't let go." So Hexa says, "Now I got 38 specialists." You guys are cracking me up here. Anyhow, Guiteau, Charles Julius Guiteau was a man that killed not the cat, but a president named Garfield. Let me get you to a commercial break real quick, and I'll get with reading more.
This is Mikey from Out of the Ordinary, and you're watching PBDC TV.
First thing in the morning, when I'm listening to music and getting a little bit of time for some creepy research, I'm always representing with my PBDC merch. What a better way to have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Don't forget to check out our other cool merch at rootsbleedred.com. That's rootsbleedred.com.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
And now back to the show. Mr. Fluffosaurus. Talking dinosaurs. All right, let's get back into who. What is his name again? Damn it, I forgot his name. Anyways, Guateo, and there we go. Guateo considered himself a loyal Republican and a stalwart, and his narcissistic personality convinced him that his work for the party had been critical to Garfield's election. And we're talking about Chester Garfield, not the cat. Not the cat. Later convinced that Garfield was going to destroy the Republican Party by scraping the patronage system, and distraught after his final encounter with Blaine, he decided the only solution was to remove Garfield and elevate Vice President Chester A. Arthur, an acolyte of Senator Conkling, the Stuart leader who managed Grant's 1880 campaign, who was not only on friendly terms with Garfield. Guateo conceded that the president would be too strong to kill with a knife, stating, "Garfield would have crushed the life out of me with a single blow of his fist." He settled on a gun after contemplating what weapon he would use. Stephen P. Kitty Cat says Garfield should have taken a bus. It will make sense in a minute. So anyways, when Teo bought a gun so he could assassinate Chester A. Garfield, when Teo felt that God told him to kill the president, he felt such an act would be a removal as opposed to an assassination. He also felt that Garfield needed to be killed to rid the Republican Party of Blaine's influence. Borrowing $15 from George Maynard, a relative by marriage, when Teo set out to purchase a revolver, he knew little about firearms but believed he would need a large caliber gun. While shopping at O'Mara's store in Washington, he chose between a .442 Webley caliber British Bulldog revolver with wooden grips or one with ivory grips. He preferred the one with the ivory handle because he thought it would look better as a museum exhibit after the assassination. Though he could not afford the extra dollar for the ivory grips, the store owner dropped the price for him. He spent the next few weeks target practicing the recoil from the revolver, and the recoil from the revolver almost knocked him over the first time he fired it. Guateo's weapon was recovered after the assassination and even photographed by Smithsonian in the early 20th century, but it has since been lost. On one occasion, Guateo trailed Garfield to the since demolished Baltimore and Potomac Railroad station as the president was seeing his wife off to a beach resort in Long Branch, New Jersey, but decided to postpone his plans because Garfield's wife, Lucerita, was in poor health and Guateo did not want to upset her. Having been alerted to the president's schedule by newspaper article on July 2nd, 1881, He lay wait for Garfield at the railroad station, getting his shoes shined, pacing, and engaging a cab to take him to the station later. As Garfield entered the station, looking forward to a vacation with his wife in Long Branch, when Teo stepped forward, shot Garfield twice from behind, with the second shot piercing the first lumbar vertebrae, but missing the spinal cords. As he surrendered to authorities, Guinteo said, "I am a stalwart of the stalwarts. Chester Arthur is president now." After a long, painful battle with infections, possibly brought on by his doctors, poking and probing the wound with unwashed hands and non-sterilized instrument, Garfield died on September 19th, 11 weeks after being shot. Most modern physicians familiar with the case state that Garfield would have easily recovered from his wounds with sterile medical care, which was common in the United States a decade later, while Candace Millard argues that Garfield would have survived Guinteo's bullet wound had his doctor simply left him alone. However, Garfield's biographer, Alan Peskin, stated that medical malpractice did not contribute to Garfield's death. The inevitable infection and blood poisoning that would ensue from a deep bullet wound resulted in damage to multiple organs and spinal bone fragmentation. So, Nadine, this was like in the 1800s that it took place. So, yeah. And guys, that's my show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed. And remember to stay out of the ordinary. I'm Mikey saying good night.
This is Mr. Applewhite speaking. Do not attempt to adjust your device. There is nothing wrong with it. I am here to deliver a message. Join Psycho Bunny Death Cult in our anti-censorship campaign. Free your mind. Free your head.